This video is going to serve as a basic introduction of how to take a part you've designed in Autodesk Fusion and prep it for an STL file to be sent to a 3D printer. First off, just want to kind of point out this is a part that I've already made a crank handle for an Automata project. And what we're going to take a look at is how to, first off, prep this so that way you have success with 3D printing. In Autodesk Fusion, some of this has kind of changed a little bit with some of the menus, but some very common things still kind of work forward as we look through doing a lot of designs. I'm going to go ahead and first, this part was all designed in inches. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change the units, and we're going to switch over to millimeters. And the reason why we're going to do that is because most of our 3D printing slicing software is set in millimeters as the default. And this will keep you from having to do any conversion or having to worry about parts being too small, being too large, anything like that. So, next option is go up to the File menu. You're going to go down to the option that's called 3D Print. And here, it's from the menu. Yours may look like this. If you've just done this for the first time, it may be set on manufacturing. This was a recent change in the summer of 2024 that they went to this style menu. So I'm going to choose the drop down and I'm going to select export. From here, looking at the menu, it says to select an object. I will go over here and I'll select my item. I'm going to change the drop down. It may be set to 3MF. We're going to go ahead and choose STL binary. I find that file type works the best. Can other file types work? Absolutely. For a lot of the education-based 3D printers, STL binary I've found has been pretty foolproof. Unit type is set to millimeter, and then what we're going to do is we can also check the refinement settings. I always check to make sure these are set to high, and I really don't mess with any of the sliders. I kind of keep them at the default setting, but I go ahead and do that. I'm going to collapse this menu, and I'm going to go ahead and select OK. From this point, it is going to ask me to name it. Right now it is set as body 1, so it's always looking for the solid body. This is a crank handle, so maybe we'll just call this crank. And then down here at the bottom it says saved in my computer, and it gives me an option. I can click on this little ellipse button and I can actually set what kind of where do I want this to be. For right now I'm just going to set this on the desktop. Notice the file type it's saving as, and select save, and select save one more time. Now if you ever have to have a scenario where you have, like, say, and I'll use an Automata as an example as well, where you have multiple parts that are inside of an assembly. You can also set up the same kind of scenario. Like, for example, if I would like an axle bushing, so you'll see the one that's highlighted there in the graphics window right here behind my crank handle. If I just right click on a component, I can choose the option called Save as Mesh, which is also the option to help us save as an STL. Notice how this menu looks exactly the same. Setup as export, one selected, STL binary. This unit type is set to inch. You can always set this to millimeter. Select OK. And it'll give it the name of whatever component. We really don't need all of that, so I'm just going to leave it as axle bushing. And again, choose my option, which is already going to be set to desktop, and click save. So those are some of the options that you can work with. One of the things that I will point out to you is that, let's open up actually an existing file, is that all of this is based upon the solid body. And so when I click the opening on this component, or if you just have a bodies folder that sits here, then you can always see that there's a body 1. And if I select on it, the whole thing highlights. However, if I was to make a change, let's say this top portion I didn't have as a join operation and I had it set as a new body. If you have two separate bodies in a file, when you go to 3D print and set up the options, notice how you're only able to pick on one or the other. You're not able to pick on both. So that's where over here in the browser you can see I've got body 1 and body 2. So if you ever run into this issue, if you've got a lot of bodies in your bodies folder, then you can always go to the modify panel, go to the combine command, And here it's looking for a target body and a tool body, which I just go ahead and select both bodies. Notice how it picks up both. If you have multiples, you could just keep clicking multiple ones. Either you can make it a new component, but actually I'm just going to have it be where it is. And I'm just going to say OK, and now you're going to notice that body now combined, and now it's back to 1. So just a couple little tips and tricks, because as you're kind of playing around, sometimes you may notice that if you generate a new body as opposed to joining, that can be causing some issue. And usually we get some questions about, you know, how do I get this to all kind of come together in order to 3D print? So, all right, that is going to wrap up our video on how to prep files from Autodesk Fusion for 3D printing. Check out another video here on how to set that up into a generic kind of slicer. We'll use the Bamboo Studio slicing software to be able to show that, since a lot of schools are going to those. And feel free to check that out in order to help you set up your 3D printing at your school.